if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
So much like Dr. Richardson, I don't like to be bored. I love to have something different to work on every single day. And so you heard me talk about kind of having a lot of different positions. The beauty of that is that I get to utilize the skills that I've developed over the years through all of my training in a very direct application way. The other thing that I really love about my job or jobs or career is that I help to dispel a lot of myths about what nursing is. I think a lot of people think of nursing as just the person at the bedside or the person at the clinic, and that's not it, right? So I'm an educator, I'm a clinician, I'm a administrator, I'm a researcher, and on a good day, I do all of those things simultaneously. And that's not something that a lot of people see or a lot of people actually think about. You think, and we often think in terms of very discrete buckets of who you are and what you do. But I bring all of that to all the jobs that I do. And so that's what I love best about it. What are some drawbacks? Having too many jobs. It's a bit challenging to maintain focus sometimes. But once you set yourself up and once you have really positioned your career well, you know what you're doing and you know how to do it. And it's not difficult at all.
Thank you. Also, for our panelists, if you could remind us of your position prior to answering the question, I think it'd be helpful for the audience. Thank you so much for your response. Does anybody else want to take that question?
So I think I want to answer that question too. I do really, I'm Dr. Quaynor, neurology at Atrium Health. So I do really agree with what Dr. Richardson and Dr. Wharton said. I mean, it looks like we are winning because we don't want to be bored and
I'm sorry to interrupt, Joe. Like, I don't have a PhD or a doctorate. I'm just a regular mister.
All right. Yeah, no worries.
I wish. But y'all worked hard for that. I'm gonna need y'all to, that's on y'all.
Yeah, but one of the things that make our job exciting is the challenging aspect of it. Because I mean, you go to work every day, don't know what to expect. Like for instance, I come to work, I don't know if I'm gonna be seeing ALS patient, stroke patient, multiple sclerosis. So it's always kind of keep you kind of going, thinking, doing, trying new things. Also, the group of people you work with, I mean, having a good support team makes it easier and fun, and you always look forward being at work. The challenging thing about it, you could potentially overwork yourself, especially in medicine, if you kind of don't restrict yourself, because there's always like patients and cases for you to deal with. So you could have that tendency of getting burned out at an early phase of your career. In addition, I think one of the things that we weren't prepared for was dealing with administration, bureaucracy, and other things which you will encounter a lot in this kind of field, because we don't get that kind of teachings when we are in medical school on how to deal with contracts and all those things. So you kind of learn from your mistakes when you kind of get into a contract. But I think those are some of the drawbacks that we encounter.
Thank you for the answer. So we have our first question from the chat. Xavier would like to know, during the application process, or I guess throughout your matriculation, did you look at the statistics of African-American men in your field and become discouraged by the lack of people in comparison to other races?
Go ahead, take that. So I was with NSBE, and I don't know how, if you went to engineering, it's like the best thing to be with you. I'm at one fire, okay, one fire, region 1. So I went to like the gym workshops. They have all these things, and like they will tell you, it's like, oh, there's not a lot, but then they will just like hit you with, but you're needed, we want you, don't get discouraged. So it's a little bit like, don't look because you don't want to, because sometimes they'll just say, yeah, there's not a lot, but don't get discouraged, because you can form these communities. And that's kind of what it is. Because like, especially as an undergrad, as part of NSBE, we had graduate students who were Black. And I had, my advisor was actually a Black man. So it's like, if he can do it, it's okay. And so he would introduce us to other PhDs who were Black. and most of those were Black men, but we also had some really strong Black women PhD faculty at my undergrad, even though it was not Howard. Okay, they had like a handful of Black people in total, but we still were able to see, and that really helps, because when you see somebody, it doesn't matter about the numbers. You're like, okay, I know somebody who can do it, so I can do it too.
I think that's a great answer. I also want to chime in. So having gone to an HBCU, I had Black professors. You know, the first person who ever told me about what a PhD was a Black professor. So I went into it maybe a little naive to how many other Black people in the basic sciences were actually existed. But I also kind of want to push back on this idea that there's not a lot of us, because there are. We're just spread out very, very thinly. And so in places like NSBE, you'll find that there actually are a good amount of Black, engineers. And if you are involved in enough organizations like this, you'll also meet a lot of Black people who are succeeding and thriving in these fields. So overall, there aren't a ton, but if you start to look in the details, there actually are quite a few. And I think there's a lot of support and encouragement you can find in those communities. So really relying on and leaning in on your support systems, I think, kind of helps insulate you from the kind of isolation you'll feel if you get caught up in the statistics.
Could I add on to that? Yeah, so it's interesting. I guess I won't put the name of the program I didn't choose to attend out there, but I did like a lot of folks do college visits, right? I also did a visit for various graduate programs. And the school that I didn't attend, offered funding, very prestigious, but I noticed that the Black men there were struggling. And I was like, well, do I want to go here? Or, I made a similar visit to University of Michigan, and I saw folks flourishing. In fact, I wasn't alone. A number of folks went in with the intent of getting a master's degree, and then they were ultimately, I guess you'd say, converted into becoming doctoral students, and a lot of them have done really well since then. And I think it wasn't by accident. There was a senior administrator, a professor, ultimately became dean, who was a Black man, and he really did a lot to support and nourish the community. So I think it was a factor for me. I already knew that getting a PhD is hard, and so why not make it easier by having a supportive community? And I found that, and I think that made a difference. And I've tried to keep that in the back of my head. At the same time, though, right? I mean, I know there's questions about, joining a program. Ultimately, though, you want to be in a position where you're maybe a pioneer, right? You can open the door for other folks, right? Somebody has to be a trailblazer, I think, eventually. And so that's more of what I'm interested in now, kind of being that person, open the door and help other folks. But again, earlier, it was an important factor, was how many people who, look more or less like me or come here and flourish and succeed. And I think that was a helpful indicator for my own success.
Pick this question also because I went to University of Virginia, and at UVA we had Office of African American Affairs, which actually brought all of us, not just those in medicine, but engineers and lawyers. So we did have like a lot of functions together, studied together, and got to know each other. But then when I enrolled at a medical college, I was one of 2 Black males in my class, Michael Johnson and I, and we had 10 African American females. So it was a little bit kind of challenging, but we actually ended up forming a big niche community, and they had a really good diversity support, which had a lot of resources for us. But I think it's manageable. But like I said, you always want to be able to balance that aspect and also have the good support system around you for that.
I just want to say, if you're the only Black person in that program, you might want to think again, because I was the only Black person the whole time I was there in my program and in the next program that was in the same college. Okay, for the whole time, 5 years. It's not always a good idea. Okay.
That's a great perspective. Thank you. So I'm excited to hear you guys' responses to this next question. And so before I ask it, I just want to remind you guys to just give us a brief, your title or your job description before you answer. But the next question is, why did you choose your career?
Hi.
Oh,
Okay, go ahead, please.
I was gonna go. Bertram Richardson. I work at Microsoft as a software engineer. I've always been interested in computers. I've actually always been interested in gaming. That's what I've always wanted to do. That's where my passion has been. I love technology. I love gaming, and it all really came from being at Howard. My time at Howard was really, really fun. Talking to my friends, seeing all the different things that they went to do in their careers after they left Howard University. And that inspired me to go into, like, I wanted to go in the field about technology. Northrop Grumman, of course, isn't really close to gaming at all, but what I initially went in there for was to work on models and simulations. So that was kind of sort of like close enough. And then as I learned and as I spent my time there and I learned everything that I learned from there and got experience, then I made the transition to move closer to move to Microsoft. Microsoft is a little bit more adjacent. I'm working in cloud computing now, but I know Xbox is like right there. So if I want to, I can make it. But I just love technology and I love being able to learn what I can learn. I know gaming is a passion that I have, but I want to learn and I want to grow in whatever fields and whatever areas that I can. But I know that'll always be there, and I have access to that now. But that's what led me to go where I'm at today.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to tackle that one? I'll take one more response.
All right, Iverson, technical program manager. This is pretty much a non-answer, so I'll keep it quick. I feel like I'm still figuring out my career. I think I had the impression when I was, in at least in undergrad, and I don't expect that everybody else has that impression, but I certainly had the impression that you kind of pick a career and you stay on that track. And I think that's true for a lot of folks, right? But I think there are other folks who allow it to evolve naturally based on life events, based on new technologies that arise, based on people they meet, based on how they're supported by mentors, sponsors, et cetera. So I think I'm in the process of kind of navigating, and I think that's perfectly fine. It's instead of picking the career, it's kind of pick the next career and pick for the next few years, and then it's progressive elaboration. You're kind of progressively allowing your career to evolve, and I think that's what I'm doing. And the reason I've ended up here to kind of get close to the answer is working as an engineer. I was always fascinated with how organizations ran, particularly organizations that put together really hard, complicated technical systems. And so I said, hey, you know what? What's more complicated than technology? People. So that's kind of what's led me in this path to manage the people that can put together the complicated technical system, given a variety of constraints, regulatory constraints, other constraints. So I think just solving hard problems is kind of the through line, and I'm sure I'll continue to be drawn to hard problems. But ultimately, I'm still allowing my career to evolve, and I'm who knows where I'll be in 5 years. But right now, this is where I'm at.
Thank you for that response and reminding us that careers are not static. I think that's a really important consideration. Dr. Wharton, did you want to chime in as well?
Sure, very quickly. Mitchell Wharton, University of Rochester, Associate Dean for Equity and Inclusion. Both Mr. Richardson and Dr. Bell said something that I thought was really important. And Mr. Richardson said growth, Dr. Bell said evolution. And that's what I wanted to chime in on as well. It is, I think that there are very few of us who think this is the place where I'm going to be for the next 30, 40, 50 years. A lot of us kind of step into our professions with an idea of this is a starting point. And I was certainly one of those people who did that. After 1 year working in the hospital on the floor, I said, this isn't for me. No disrespect to the folks who do, because they do phenomenal work, but I knew it wasn't for me, and it wasn't for me in the long term. And so there's periods of evolution, and every single time you take on something new, you learn something, you figure out something a little bit more about yourself and where you want to make your mark. And we've heard we've heard folks talk about kind of the larger programmatic ways in which they want to make changes, but also, as Dr. Bell said, being that person who's able to be the inspiration for other folks or being the model for other folks is also part of that development and evolution. And so as you move through your career, think about kind of where you're moving to. And when I mentor students or just young people in general, I ask them, well, what is it that you want to do when you grow up, right? And so we've been conditioned to think, oh, we have to name one thing. And I say, okay, so you're going to do that and what? And just keep pushing the button so that you've listed at least 3 different things that you're going to do. Don't allow yourself to kind of get locked in that mindset of, I just do this one thing for the rest of my life. You're a multifaceted, multifocal person. Why limit yourself?
Thank you. That's a great point. Our next question is, how did your student experiences, i.e. research experience and or hands-on training / clinical shadowing, how did your student experiences prepare you for the work you are doing now? And so student experience being your undergrad years. I can repeat the question if anybody needs me to. So the question again is, how did your undergraduate experiences prepare you for the work you are doing now?
So I guess it's not been that long. KJ Benjamin, Dr. Benjamin, researcher, postdoc. It just means I have a postdoc and I'm getting paid less than if I didn't, if I were in a faculty member or something. I would say that I'm in a unique position where my first research experience, my advisor was Black. And I went to one of those like LSAMP kind of things where it's like they want diversity, but you don't always get paired with Black mentors. Normally you just get paired with people who want to nurture people who are diverse. And so he was like fantastic. He pretty much was like telling me the lay of the land, how to get by, what was common in research, things about industry, things about government. It pretty much just shared all kinds of things, because I was like, I had no idea what was going on. And that kind of helped me figure out that, okay, I should do X, Y, and G so I can position myself to get into grad school. And then I had other mentors who, especially my dad, is like, please join NSBE, please join NSBE. And eventually I did join NSBE. And that was fantastic. I don't know why I waited. So there, the community, being in that particular professional community where like you see like just like excellence, I will say excellence, but it's pretty fantastic. That also prepares you, because they'll have research symposiums where you can present, and it's significantly more chill than if you're going to a big conference, because there's only a handful. And yes, you still need to give your best, but like it feels like, okay, I can get this practice done and maybe get an award or 2 at the same time, and getting connections to help you, who will give you strong recommendations, especially if you're going into grad school, who will like help you for internships, for doing like a co-op or an internship, getting you connected. Because my advisor literally got me a summer research position that was paid for, that I was just going to go home, and he's like, here you go, we have this funding, we're going to do that. Those kinds of opportunities or lay the groundwork for being at the next level, at least grad school, and then like understanding how to like build your network, which you can take anywhere. Like being able to present, you don't need to be in academia, you don't need to be in industry, that's like common skills.
You touched on a lot of great points about mentorship that we're definitely going to circle back to. So keep those on the top of your head.
My name is Bertram Richardson. I work at Microsoft. A few things that I wanted to add to that was that in my undergrad experience, I learned how to learn. Coming from high school, some of us like didn't have to study, like we just breezed through high school, easy money, like nothing to worry about. But then I had to learn how to learn. I had to learn, like, I'm not just going to get everything first try. You know, I may have to go to the office hours. I may have to put in that extra work to understand something. So that's something I had to learn undergrad. And I learned how to ask questions. Sometimes like you can be like prideful. You can let your ego get, because you used to being like the smart person. You used to, if 9 times out of 10 you used to killing high school. You went to college, it's going to be the same thing. And then you had to realize, wait, I need to learn how to ask questions, because if I act like if I don't say anything and I'm lost and I'm confused, then I won't learn anything. And that's how it is. That helps me to this day at work. A lot of things that I may work on may be complicated or may be new to me, or maybe and I know, you know, a lot of people, a lot of the doctors here can attest to walking into a company and there's a lot of different acronyms. So, you know, there's the ASA that goes to the BCM and blah 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 blah. And then when you're sitting over here wondering like, okay, what is this? What is that? How do these things connect? You got to ask the questions, because if you don't know, then you won't. If you don't know and you don't ask, then you'll never know. So not being afraid to ask questions, learning how to learn, and not being afraid to fail, not being afraid to get it wrong, not being afraid to just put yourself out there, because if you don't try, then you don't know if you know it or you don't know. So learn it, try to figure it out, you know, ask the questions, fail, ask the teacher, hey, what did I do wrong? This is my thought process. Oh, then they can help you out, because the teachers can help you, your friends can help you. And those things that take you a long way, and those, you stack those different resources together, you'll be able to tackle anything that comes in your way, and you'll be able to tackle it maybe with finesse, maybe with tenacity, maybe with some smarts, but you'll be able to get it. You'll be able to solve the problem. So those are some things that I learned through my undergrad experience. You know.
Yeah, that was a great response. I want to echo the point about learning and embracing failure. I think some of our biggest advancements in science and medicine and technology have come in response to failure. Most things don't work the first time, so that's a great point. Our next question is going to come from the audience. So Dosaya wants to know, after you've chosen your specific fields that you're in now, do you have any side disciplines that are either related or non-related to STEM? And how do you balance them and still staying on track in your career? I'll shoot this one towards Dr. Wharton, because I know you have many, many positions.
Yes, actually, this is a very interesting question. So I talked about all the training that I went through in terms of becoming a nurse and getting a PhD. When I went to Hopkins to do the postdoc in HIV prevention epidemiology, it was in the School of Public Health, which is a discipline that I had not previously been trained in. I grew fascinated with that. And so I'm actually enrolled in an MPH program right now. So add that onto the list of other things that I do. But as you talk about kind of disciplines that are related to STEM, it has a really nice overlap in terms of, you know, it's this piece about how do we think about health? How do we think about technology? How do we think about policy? All from a very different perspective, right? And I've been trained to think about it from the individual perspective, and now I'm looking at it from an aggregates perspective. So if there was one field that's, I guess, or discipline has that side relation, I would say for me, it's public health.
Thank you. Does anybody else?
I don't have anything that's monetary right now. That's not related to STEM, but I do like to write. So right now I consider it a hobby, but if I I suppose if I had more time, I would probably put a little bit more effort, or at least set some time to actually write, like some fantasy books. But I'd like to write. I'm like dyslexic, so that shit is hard, but I like to do it regardless.
Thank you. No, that's great. I also enjoy writing. So our next question is, what advice would you give to any male students at Morgan who are experiencing a sense of hopelessness in their current academic program, research training, and/or future PhD aspirations? So advice or encouragement would be great.
I want to start. I think a piece of advice I would give is it's going to sound a little cliche, like don't give up. Another piece would be to use your resources. When I first came into Howard, I didn't know anything about computer science. I didn't have a computer science background. I learned everything I learned about coding from Howard University. And at first it was hard. I went to an engineering school. I went to, if you're from the Baltimore area, I went to Baltimore Polytechnic Institute. And that's an engineering school, but it wasn't computer engineering. It wasn't computer science. The teachers were tough, especially Dr. Lee. He gave me some bad grades, but outside of that, like it was it was tough. It was hard, and it took a while to understand. It took a while to get it, but I put in the work, and I went to the office hours. I talked to the teachers. I talked to the TAs. I talked to my friends that were in class. Like, you have to do what, like, before you say to yourself, maybe this isn't for me, really ask yourself, did I put in the work, and did I put in the effort and the work to get the grade that I want? Because if engineering is hard, STEM is hard, these things are hard, like all of these things are hard. If it was so easy, everyone would do it. You know, everyone would be an engineer, everyone would be a doctor, everyone would be, you know, a nurse, everyone would be in these fields, and they aren't easy. I remember being in freshman year, being at Howard and seeing our engineering 101 class start out with like in an auditorium. Everybody's there, it's a whole bunch of people, and they literally said, look to your left, look to your right, one of them isn't going to be there. And we all were thinking, like, whatever, y'all trying to gas it, y'all trying to make it seem like this is harder than it actually is. And I lie to you not, my class started out in the auditorium. My computer science 1 class started out in the auditorium. My computer science, my graduating class was 11 people. Like, and we all were just cool by the end of it, because we all knew, like, yeah, we survived it. It's hard. It's not supposed to be easy, but you have to do your part, and you have to put in the work to make it as easy as possible and to understand it your way. Because everyone doesn't learn the same way, everyone doesn't get it the same way, and try to figure it out. Maybe you don't get it in class. Maybe you need to see an example. Maybe you need to do the example yourself. Maybe you need to talk to the TA and provide 3 different examples of how to do something. But do the thing that you need to do for you to be successful, and figure out which way you learn and what's the best way for you to understand things. But don't give up, because again, you can start at 0 experience and then get yourself to a very, very high level of understanding and become an expert. Everyone didn't know everything they know now. Everyone had to learn it. All of these accomplished brothers here learned through years and years of, of training and years of studying. So you can get to that level, but I can promise you, all of these doctors that I'm in the room with worked hard. They worked really, really hard. And they had some days where they were like, yo, I don't know what's happening right now, or I don't get it, or I don't understand it, but they figured it out, and here they are now. So don't give up and keep trying, but learn how you learn.
I'd like to respond as well. We might get a lot of responses in this one. Iverson, technical program manager. I just really echo everything we just heard. One crucial thing to remember, I don't know, it's helpful to put things in perspective. A lot of the, let's say, equations or concepts you get exposed to in undergrad, those are things that took humanity like centuries to come to. And some, it may have been several people working serially or in concert on only this one problem, on no other problem. Frankly, they may have been wrong on other things they were focusing on and studying. This may have been like the source of their accomplishments of their life is like a little equation that sits in a book. And you're expected to learn that in a couple of weeks, right? But like all the assumptions, so I think it's helpful to be patient with yourself, that everything is not easy to pick up quickly. I think along with that is an understanding that I think we develop intuition over time. Some things you get exposed to aren't intuitive, so it's not easy to understand. And I think it's easy to get a sense of hopelessness, like the right fit for, none of it makes sense. Well, that's perhaps because it's not intuitive, but the intuition develops. So I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Over time, the stuff starts to click and it starts to make sense. And if you just, like you just said, you've got to give it the time. I think the other thing is, I went to a professor when I was at Howard and I said, I don't think this is the right field for me. I don't think electrical engineering is a good fit for me. He actually gave me a book, and the book was about a blind guy in like the 1700s or something like that, right? And he was like, he became a monk. He traveled the world. It was wild. The story was interesting, but the purpose, the message of the book was, you can do anything, right, if you put your mind to it. This was a time, of course, where there weren't a lot of accommodations for folks who are visually impaired, but this guy was very creative, and so the intent was, his message was, engineering's a field for everybody. Everybody can fit there. STEM is for everyone, right? No matter where, right brain, left brain, everybody can fit here. If you kind of put in the work, you can find a good fit for you, and you can make what may seem like something that, you may not think you're a good fit for it. You think you have some impairments or some challenges or there's some concepts that are difficult. And with some creativity, I think it's very easy to overcome those challenges. And I think there are a lot of histories full of those examples. And I think that creativity is useful for the rest of your career, because there'll be other challenges, and applying that same creative mindset of not getting discouraged, but finding a way to get past that challenge and still accomplish whatever you're after. I think that really pays dividends over time. So, whatever you choose, I'm sure it'll be good for you, but I do think, again, it sounds cliche, but sticking in there really does pay off literally, and it pays off kind of in terms of your satisfaction, what you've been able to accomplish over your career. That's my opinion.
Can I just add something really quick to all of that? So Mitchell, Wharton, University of Rochester. I think that there are 3 things that folks need to do. And this is me speaking as an educator, so trying to come up with some very practical advice. 1 is speak up. Do not sit in silence. Do not suffer in silence. If you're having a difficult time, speak up. Now, is that talking to your professors? Is that talking to your classmates? Is talking to administrators? But speak up and let people know that you're having a difficult time, and be very specific about what is challenging or what you're experiencing, right? Because sometimes it's not even about the work that's going on in the classroom. It's about other stuff that's happening in life. And we can help you to make arrangements and help you to move through things. But we don't know if we're kind of looking at you and you're just looking at us, and we see your grades and they start to trend down. That's too late. As soon as something doesn't feel right, doesn't sit right, speak up, let us know. The second thing is establish personal networks. And so you should, every single person needs to establish networks within their institution and outside of their institution. You could have gone to the best institution in the world, the greatest professors, and you could still sit there and still be deer to headlights. You could talk to somebody in another institution and be like, oh, I get it, I understand it. So make sure that you have those connections both within and outside of your institution, both for content, but also for mentoring and guidance and how to maneuver through your program or how to maneuver through your career. And then the last thing I'll say is remember your motivation. You're there for a reason. You're there because you want to get something out of it. I can't tell you every single fact that I've ever been forced to learn in any of my programs, but I can tell you the stuff that I was interested in. And as I thought about it, sometimes there was some really challenging information that I needed to learn, and I had to learn it so I could get to the point where I got to that next piece where I could keep my motivation going. And so again, speak up, establish those personal networks, and then remember what your motivation is.
And sorry, I just wanted to chime in on Bertram, Richardson, Microsoft. Mitchell made a great point. They said remember your motivation. A lot of Iverson can attest to this. Howard is full of a lot of distractions. Most HBCUs, most colleges are full of a lot of distractions. There's girls, there's alcohol, there's drugs, there's parties, there's boys, there's whatever you into, is somebody there, is something there, it is something there to get you, and it will distract you. And the thing about it is it will distract you, it will get you to lose focus, and then it'll keep on going, it'll keep on being there and it'll keep on flourishing. I know there were plenty of friends that I had that failed out, that flunked out because they wanted to drink all the time, or they wanted to party all the time, or they didn't want to go to school, they just wanted to lay up with their boo all day. You got to remember, you got to keep the main thing, and you got to stay focused on the goal. When you're in college, your real goal is to get a degree. Everything else is secondary. If you come out there with a degree, you've completed the goal. You feel me? That's what that's what you're trying to do. Well, me personally, I wanted the degree and I wanted the job, and that's what I got. But those things come first. That party will always be there. That party will be there next week. The same people are probably going to be at that party. You're going to hear the same music. You're going to drink the same alcohol. You're going to get the same twerk, whatever. But that you can put that to the side. Friday, there will be another Friday. There will be another Saturday. Get your work done. Focus on that, because that's what's going to get you the degree. That's what's going to have you not wasting your time. You don't want to be a super duper senior, while all your friends have graduated and they working here, working there, living their best lives while you still struggling in school. So focus on, it's always going to be fun things to do every single weekend, but get the things that you need to get done first. You get those things done first, you'll be fine. And I'm gonna tell you right now is I don't know if you remember this at Howard, but they would shout out all the schools at parties. And they never shouted out my school. They never shouted out the School of Engineering because we wasn't supposed to be there. We was probably studying somewhere. We wasn't at the parties, but I mean, I was there, but you know, it all worked out for me. But I just knew how to compartmentalize. I can go to the party on Friday, but if I know I got a project due Monday, Saturday may not be the day for the party. You know, I need to focus on what I need to focus on because the party ain't paying the bills. The party ain't paying the tuition. I'm paying all of that. I need to get up out of here. So that's what I need to. So what Mitch what they said, focus on what you need to focus on because that's the most important part, and make sure that you know the goal, you understand what is the end goal, because the end goal is the degree. The end goal is success, is graduation. Everything else is secondary.
It's a great response. Thank you so much, panelists, for those responses. Our next question is, what aspect about graduate life did you feel most unprepared for as you transitioned from undergrad? And feel free to discuss changes pertaining to HBCU versus PWI, culturally or academically as well.
I guess I'll say something is probably a little different, but so I went to a small school in undergrad where like you knew everybody, and then I went to a very like the largest school by land mass was my graduate school. I could not, like, it literally took 2 classes in 2 different directions was more than a mile away. So I had to get used to, like, if you wanted to do something, you had to leave a lot earlier than I wanted to get there. And I know that's kind of small, but that like ruins your planning because you think, oh, I got 5 minutes. No, you need 20 minutes because they have buses, but those buses is not on time. And like, if you want to like enjoy, like I saw like something about work-life balance. That's really important in grad school because like you could literally just go to the lab every day, but you get burned out real quick. So like being able to like, okay, I'm going to do this thing every week, making sure you get there, that's important. And it was a bit of a struggle to go from, okay, I can get wherever I want in like 5 minutes to I have to actually plan when I want to go somewhere and like put it in my actual like, okay, I have to stop working now so I can get to this event so that I'm not just working the whole time. KJ, research academic.
So Mitchell Wharton again, University of Rochester. I've only gone to PWIs, so I can't speak to the HBCU experience. However, one thing that became abundantly clear when I started graduate work is that nobody's going to follow you. Nobody's going to track you down. Nobody's going to look to see if you complete an assignment. At this phase, you're an adult learner, and the expectation is that you will learn and you will do what you need to do to pass a class, to pass a course. It's a bit of a culture shock for a lot of folks when they come in to graduate programs thinking it's just like the undergraduate experience. It's not. It's really not. At this level, we expect that you have lives outside of school and have a whole host of other things that you're trying to balance. And that there's an expectation that if you're having trouble, that you're going to communicate with your professors. If you need to miss a class, you'll communicate with them. Again, they're not going to track you down. We're not going to look for assignments. It's very easy to fail a class, very easy at the graduate level. But again, it goes back to remembering what is your purpose, what is your motivation, and staying on target with that. I did see in the comments that there's a really quick question about work-life balance. I'm a big proponent of trying to find that balance, and I do it in a very unconventional way. I actually schedule things on my schedule, right? So I have my administrative assistant block off times when if I just need to do writing, it's just for that. But I also put in there a term that I have learned from a presentation years ago, resiliency investments, right? And so these are the things that help to bring you back to center, bring you back to focus. So when I want to go to the gym, I don't just say, okay, maybe I'll go to the gym. No, I schedule it on my schedule. Or if I want to go to do something else, you know, maybe I'm going hiking in a national park, like I'll put it on my schedule, because if I don't, somebody else will co-opt that time somebody else will take that time away from me. And so I'm a big proponent of just scheduling in everything.
Thank you for that response. I also want to chime in specifically in regards to the transition from HBCU to a PWI for graduate school. So I attended North Carolina Central for undergrad, and at Central, I was really, really involved in academics, extracurriculars, had a lot of friends, Greek life, parties. I was able to do so much with the time that I was given. And I think I kind of took that for granted when I transitioned to graduate school, where I felt like the expectations were a lot higher and the rigor was a lot more strenuous. So I was having to dedicate a lot more time just to school. But in addition to that, there weren't as many creative outlets for student life in graduate school. I think like HBCUs have a lot of extracurricular opportunities, and I did not find that same opportunity at my at Johns Hopkins. So on one hand, like socially, I felt there wasn't as much to do, and I was having to spend a lot more time dedicated to my academics. And then in addition to that, the students at HBCUs in undergrad and the students at PWIs, especially large ones like Hopkins for graduate school, are very different. As far as, I wouldn't say they're different types of students, but they're different in how willing they are to help you. And this is something that I definitely took for granted. In my HBCU science classes, like as Bertram was kind of speaking to, as I'm starting to matriculate up, people would drop out. And so our classes would get smaller. And so we would all work together. And so for any one assignment or exam, it felt like it was us versus the assignment, or us versus the professor, us versus that class, trying to all get through it together. But when I got to Hopkins, it was very much so, at least I felt like, and I was treated like it was myself versus the other students in that class. They took the curve very seriously, and they also would look down on you if they felt like you weren't able to contribute or add to the study group. So it was no longer okay to just show up and be a supportive friend and think you were going to get help in a class. You also had to now contribute something. And I think that there was a lot more pressure put on what you brought to the table academically that I wasn't necessarily expecting. So people weren't as willing to help. And so I think that gets back to Dr. Wharton's point about knowing when you need help and putting together social groups and mentors who are really ready to help you when you need it. Because if I hadn't been as proactive about seeking out that help, I think I definitely would have struggled a lot more. Because people were not as willing to help at Johns Hopkins as they were in North Carolina Central. Okay, so I know we are running low on time, and I want to be conscious of everybody else's schedules, but we had a couple people chime in about work-life balance. So I just wanted to maybe one or two more people to just speak on work-life balance as our final question.
I was going to speak about work-life balance. I went to Johns Hopkins while I was working at Northrop Grumman, so I was full-time working, and I had to kind of sort of balance my time as a student. I got a C one year, and at Northrop Grumman's policy was if you get a C, you had to like repay the money for like that specific class. So that C not only hurt me academically, but it hurt me financially. Like it was, Johns Hopkins is expensive, you know what I mean? It's only gotten more and more expensive like per class. So that sucked. But after that, I had to realize like maybe I'm burning myself out. Maybe I'm having two classes and working full time and trying to have some semblance of a life is like hard. So I just cut it back. I was like, all right, let me just take one class at a time. That's easier for me to focus on. I can take one class every semester, and I can work my full-time job, and I can have some time. And that gave me more balance and everything. That helped me out a lot. It's really about figuring out what works best for you. I know some people, though, that they're amazing. They're robots. They can have 3 full classes and work full time. They need 2 hours of sleep, and that's all they need, and they can get it all in. Not me. I need time to think to myself, okay, I know I can knock this out. I know I can knock that out. I need time to really like, and I just need time to actually have for myself and have to have friends. And I need to be able to have a break. I don't want to be always, you know, I have work on top of work, on top of work, on top of work, on top of work, a little bit of free time. But if I go a little bit over, I'm messed up. So you really got to figure out what works for you. But the work-life balance, you have to prioritize that work-life balance. The way Mitchell said, that has to be on your schedule. You have to put it there, because if you don't put it there, someone's gonna co-opt that time, or you're gonna burn yourself out, like KJ said. You have to make sure that you are balancing yourself out. So, and whatever that may come into, maybe take a little bit longer on that in that graduate program to keep yourself sane and to prosper. That was the last C I got. Everything was A's and B's from that point forward. And I think I ended my year with like, I took 2 classes at once because I knew I could focus on it and get it out of the way. Took my 2 classes, got it out of the way, graduated, everything was great. But you gotta balance it out. You know, don't rush, take your time, have patience, but understand yourself.
Great. Thank you so much, Bertram. So I just want to, at this point, thank our audience for their time and attention and their wonderful and insightful questions. Thank you so much for being here. I want to also thank our organizers, the DPAC, as well as Thomas and Janelle. I want to thank our esteemed panelists for their advice and their wisdom. You guys were amazing. And thank everybody for coming out to this amazing panel. I think we have a recording, so we'll make sure to send that out to anybody who may have missed the event. But with that, I want to wish you guys a good rest of your afternoon, and thank you again.
Thank you, everybody. You guys have a great day.
Take care, everyone.
And Michael, please feel free to share my info with the students and stuff.
Absolutely.
Mike.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so they could reach out. Thanks.